Probably good to have fewer concepts to get a rest. So who's on her? Ciao.
Katang jari anadi parang ayachata sampita sata paraja kajadika tese tu Dhamma anukang timang pajam.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Our final evening together. As I always joke, if it was a good retreat, you feel sad. If it was a horrible retreat, you feel glad. Perceptions. So I hope you feel sad. No, I don't do it. So what to say? I was in Boston in, I think, June, visiting a friend who's going through some difficulties and trying to help him. And on the return journey, I took the flight from Boston, the Porter flight from Boston to Ottawa, and I was sitting at the gate, and it was quite close to the main gate and the desk, and the attendant there was announcing things, this and that. And a African-American fellow sat down next to me, across from me, and he was kind of scrolling through his phone, and he had an interesting array of jewelry and a big Christian cross. You got a problem there or no?
Someone's saying her speaker screen is blank. So
Her speaker screen. Should I just carry on, or yeah? Do you want me to stop, or it's a good story? Take.
It's probably one person.
Okay, so.
If there were many, we would get two.
We could.
Can they still hear us? No, if they can hear. As long as they can hear us.
Je ne sais pas. Not my department. Impatience feels like this.
I think you should keep going because they can hear us.
Okay.
More people.
Okay. So you settle down. Okay, we're at the airport, yeah?
Yeah.
And so this African-American fellow sits down, he's got this jewelry, and he's got a very prominent Christian cross. And I guess in an airport, you don't look at anyone, but you do. You sort of try not to be rude. But I was thinking, is that fashion, or is that religious statement? Is it both? Kind of mind doing that. And then the attendant is making his announcements, and then this another African American guy comes up and kneels down in front of me. Don't know him at all, and he says, "Bhante, would you like something?" And I kind of, some water would be nice. And he shuffles off, and my friend across the way is watching all this, and he comes back. He must have got the biggest bottle available in the airport. It's this massive bottle of water. And it's just this generous gesture. And then he leaves, and I say thank you and all that. And then I couldn't get the top open. My hands aren't so strong anymore. And I look at my friend. I said, "Oh yeah, sure," and then opens it for me. And I said, "Thank you." He says, "No problem." So we get a little friendship going there. And then the attendant did that pre-boarding announcement, children, and all that. And he points to me, "Sir, please come on up." I said, "Really?" So 3 good things in a row. Within 15 minutes. And that sense of that someone respects you, and that someone honors you, and that someone cares for you, and that someone is generous to you, is hugely important in our lives, isn't it? And the effect it has on the mind is it's not the same as praise. You're great, you're not great, or blame. It's a whole different thing, and it's very much of the heart. And then the opposite, of course, denigration, disrespect, shaming. Those are terribly painful and hurtful kinds of impulses that humans can feel and give. So can we, and what that did for me in that instance, it didn't make me feel like I was the Dalai Lama, it wasn't that. It opened my heart, obviously. So, oh, God, that's really lovely. That's nice. And so that opening of the heart, we are trying to do that for ourselves as well, aren't we? I think it's very important that because the opening of the heart seems to me fulfillment. That's where, at least I find, that's the place or way of well-being, where I really don't need anything. I mean, I'll have a cup of coffee and a sandwich, thank you, if you give it to me, that kind of thing. But it's different than owning something like if I need a book or something and I get it online and it's a very good book. Yeah, that's ownership, that's right. But there's something about the heart's fulfillment which is very important for human well-being, human flourishing. And to expect it from others is nice if it happens. The other is very painful, but how do we come to that within our own efforts and our own reflections? And we can do that. And the way to do that is to become more and more aware of the heart, quite simply, in whatever ways we can touch that. And kind of further to that, one of the questions that came up in these lovely interviews, I really enjoy those. I learn a lot. And we're all characters, by the way. But so what the question in my mind became from the question in the meeting was, how do I combine the word love and awareness? How can I get some language around that? Because if I'm stressing love, sometimes it sounds like liking. If stressing awareness, and this morning I was just talking with the monks about that, and I thought, could I say that it's aware. Awareness is maternal, would that work? It works for me. That it's the awareness which is maternal. Why it works for me is because my mom was a very loving woman, and so was my gran. I was saying to someone, we were talking, like if I spilled something or broke something as a kid, like we lived together in Germany for 4 years, I think, my grandparents, my parents, me and my brother, in a kind of displaced person situation you had after the war. And like if I knocked something off and it broke, my grandma would say, "Oh, it was meant to break." I mean, that's helpful. Man, you twit. Stop. And my mother, like, when Ayameta Nandi went to visit my mom in the condo in Ottawa, and my mom looked at her. She said, "What's the most important thing in the world?" And poor Ayameta Nandi, oh gosh, the monk's mother is asking me. She said, "Love." My mother said, "Yes." Passed the test. So if I put that into my consciousness as a suggestion, that the awareness which is maternal, I really like that. Feels really open. So the language which receptive awareness, it all belongs, metta as acceptance, those kinds of things. And then back to for that, like if your experience of motherhood was dysfunctional, probably won't work, or motherhood was not really, it didn't work out well or whatever, then it might not work. So it's just language and perceptions. But what is it about an awareness which isn't just critical, strategic, analytical, kind of all up in the head, and then an awareness which is receptive, open, loving. These are important for me. They're very, very important intuitions, I guess, and getting definitions around them. I'm always struggling, I think, to get words around them, but I think you get that. Now, the open heart, then, anytime that is you're touched in some way in life, the golden rule is, just as I thrive when that occurs in my life, I will try to implement that in the life of others. And that's what the precepts are based on. Just as I fear and don't like being harmed, I, in turn, will save other people from that fear and harm, because they are the same as me. And that's the way to use precepts, which is a very compassionate way, a very considered way, rather than precepts as something like, well, there are many ways to do it. I don't want my goods or my property to be damaged or taken or stolen from me. I fear that. And just as I fear that, I want to save other beings from the fear of exploitation or misuse. And that's all about the open heart, isn't it? About the heart which is sensitive to all beings, in all realms. The world is obviously it's not a soft world. It can be a very harsh world, and that openness can be misused. So you have to be streetwise. And again, all my stories, you've heard them all, but here we go again. I had a very interesting experience in London, where I went to an opening of a small Tibetan center on the third story of a house somewhere in London, England. And my heart is really open. Oh, let's check out the Tibetans, what they're up to, kind of thing. And we had got an invitation, and my heart was just so open. And this guy came at me and started to basically blame me for the war in Sri Lanka. This was some years ago. And I said, what the heck was this? So he's kind of coming at me with a kind of political thing about the war with the tigers and that, and I couldn't even figure out what he's doing, but I was very open, and that's very difficult, isn't it? And I kind of, I felt like I had just done 10 rounds with Mike Tyson. And it wasn't much, but it's, when you get to that openness, and then I forget who I was with, and then I kind of feeling like, well, that wasn't fair. And I'm walking along a street in London, and it was evening, it was even dark maybe, and a woman was walking a dog, kind of a lab type dog, and he just jumps up on me and licks my face. And she said, "That's never happened before." So then I'm like, what's the world about? But why I reference that is that happens in life. Your heart is open and it gets crushed and crushed and crushed, right? And then you're kind of afraid to open the heart, or reluctant to open the heart. That's not a good state of affairs as well. Now, Lompa Cha's heart was open, but he was fearless. He was like, you didn't mess with him. And you knew it, because so there was this lovely combination of, like George Sharp called him a shogun, which sounds pretty heavy, but he knew his culture, he knew his place, he knew his own power, and he was very charismatic. But he was really compassionate and wise, and he never hurt anyone. So he had all the gifts where he could be very, very open, but untouchable, really untouchable. And that was impressive to see. So to open the heart is important, really, really important. And maybe the way we kind of come to that open heart is really be careful of the lack of self-respect that we sometimes manifest, because that's really very, very, very painful from our idealism, whatever. And which isn't like an egotistical thing. Yeah, I'm a great Buddhist or something like that. It's just like kind of respecting your own, like just talking with all of you. You've had some tough cards to play. Like difficult childhoods and difficult people, and those are super challenging. And then everyone here takes those challenges and uses them for spiritual growth. Is wonderful. Even though maybe in the spiritual growth it didn't look that great at times, but that basic sense of self-respect that I'm going to work on this, and I'm not just going to blame the world, is really quite wonderful. Even though we do the blaming and so on. And so I to encourage you and to say that this ability to take life's insults and then transform them into understanding and respect and love is profound. Who's doing it? Who's doing that? So even, to encourage that even if you get a Niagara Falls of horror coming into your consciousness, it's all right. It's not you. It's not who you are. And then this, I think, the more we come to a place of well-being in our own hearts, and you do that viscerally, don't you? You got to get a feeling in there. Oh, this is the home ground. This is all right. This is a home ground. And there's many ways to access that. One of the ways is just through silence. So the silence at the statement, it's like this. If you understand what that statement is trying to foster, it's that moment where the mind's continual egotism, say, is broken, and there's just the silence of infinity. The kind of great space, which might seem infinitesimal, but It's very, very important. And from that, you start to notice the heart more in that way. And just to share with you what I find with all of you is everyone I think comes to first of all, I think we all work through the turbulent times of our, the mountain stream image, where the mountain stream in the mountains is very turbulent, and we go through that. And then we have a few Niagara Fallses. But then we do get to that open Gangetic plain, like what? The St. Lawrence after Trois-Rivières, where it just opens out into the Gulf of St. Lawrence, wide expanse, in Gaspé there. Wide expanse of water, and we do touch those places and possibilities. And I tend to talk about the horror shows of my life more, just to encourage you, or I hope it doesn't discourage you. But there is that, isn't there? And I find that different people have affinities to different ways of coming to that. Some really like the sound of silence, really kind of tune into that space, or just the word space, just that. And then this kind of tuning into the heart, feeling that, knowing that, and saying, yeah, that's a good place to rest. I like that. Or the other, I like resting with that space. And then combination, like resting in the heart and hearing the sound of silence. Some people just body awareness, just awareness of the vibration of the body. But there's a kind of simplicity to that, I think. And I think that simplicity is one settles on a kind of attitude or a way of abiding, maybe that's the way to put it. The way of abiding with space, openness. Like I think everyone was abiding with the space of the water. Right? That was kind of, that's a nice way to abide, allow attention to feel like that. Or then these beautiful moments of respect that we get and generosity we get in life to kind of, So that, you can't just nail those things down because they're not techniques. Okay, thou shalt do space today, the heart tomorrow, and then you do veggies the next day. It doesn't work that way. And Lompa Samita, he had this. I don't know if he uses it so much, but I know he wrote a book was done of his talks, intuitive awareness, and everyone went, what do you mean by that? In a curious way. And I've never asked them actually to define it, but my sense of that is when the mind has that silent attentiveness, or maybe a kind of maternal awareness, whatever you want, then wisdom functions there. Wisdom functions because it's available. And why it should be that way, I don't know, but it certainly seems to me that way. If you just wait and watch and observe, insights arise. Maybe because you see cause and effect, but it certainly seems that way. And those insights are intuitive. Don't you get that? Like in practice, you try something, I don't know, left, right, and this is moving nicely, and you kind of go for that. And no amount of intellectual structure intellectual structure might tweak it for you, but there's something very personal about that. And that's why I think I always encourage people, you have awareness, you've got the equipment, go for it. Just trust in awareness. One of the questions from yesterday was, does trusting in awareness lead to insight? I would say trusting awareness is the insight. Bas. Done. Now, obviously, trusting in awareness would lead to revelations of various sorts about whatever. But to me, that's the basic insight. What is the home ground? And then that that conjoined with that sense of it all belongs, or I don't know if that works, maternal, the awareness which is maternal or whatever. Certainly works for me. And then when the doubts come up within that, because doubt is of course of thought and of intellect, and can I use doubt, or is doubt something I always have to solve with intellect? And in the Indian tradition, or you have the kind of questions of who am I, or Rupert Spira has a good way of saying that. He says, am I aware? A very interesting question. Am I aware? And it breaks you to silence very quickly. Am I aware? Now that's using doubt as a way of awakening. And whereas doubt, which is just on the intellectual level, usually it's the sorting out information and get the information systems right, which we need in practical, realistic ways. But does the thinking mind open your heart? I don't find that. I think the thinking mind helps me in the world of things, or not. So I brought my colored crayons, and I have got some graph paper used for designing rugs. So I'm some colors, having great fun. But that, I'm using intellect and then a terrible sense of color, and but I'm directing my mind outward now into an object, into an objective creation, which is great. You do it or not. But in this way, so that my question is like, does chartreuse go with red? No. How about brown with yellow? Well, that's better. That's doubt used in a worldly sense. But when we use doubt in this more inward sense, we're moving inward now. We're not moving out into manipulating the world of things. We move inward, and then like a question like, am I aware? And if I take that more inward, I come to the heart. I come to silence, and I come to the heart. And it's in this inward movement which the world of distractions doesn't facilitate very much. And we have to come up into, we have to emerge into the world, as it were, to sort out all the different things we have to sort out. And a retreat and our own meditations and spaces like our monastery are places of inwardness in that way. The beauty helps. I think beauty, like the beauty of this natural beauty that we are gifted with, does help, doesn't it? It really. Whereas the coarseness of consumer society just kind of pulls you out all the time. It's completely out, and we all know that. And what's to complain? It's just the way it is. They want your eyeballs, that kind of thing. But this is an inwardness, so it's much more subtle, and it's very caring. It's a very caring kind of attention rather than trying to get something. And the challenge, like I went back to the monastery yesterday, and it's just the same retreat. Even better. So we have a new backdrop for the Buddha image, and we've sorted out the echo, all kinds of good things like that, but just the atmosphere of beings who care for each other, really sincerely, and care for the animals and the apple trees, and that's such a privilege I have. So I always encourage you, come to the monastery, use the shrine room. We have limited accommodation, I know, but how do you cultivate that shrine space in your own home? I think that's very important, that you have, like, rather than just sort of, well, I mean, you can't, well, I'll just sit on the cushion over left of the television today, that'll do. You know. That's all right, better than not. But to actually create a shrine, like here, we've respected the shrine, and we've had flowers and a beautiful image, and I light the candle, and we bow and we chant, and these things are very helpful. They're very helpful because they are gestures of respect. Gestures of kindness, gestures of mindfulness, softness, and you don't like I'll just rip 3 quick ones off and then I'll meditate. I don't have time. Oh, the candle, I don't need to do that today. I just got to meditate. It's not that kind of a thing. It's not efficiency. It's not even aesthetics. It's just the beauty of ritual, and when it's done that way, and when it's done in a corporate way. With like chanting, we don't do much chanting because my voice is pretty pathetic now. I used to do much more chanting, but just that little bit, we come together as a sense of mutual respect and a mutual respect for the teaching. These have a profound effect if you do them a lot. And then, so a shrine usually has a Buddha image. Candles, incense, flowers. We don't use incense because many people start coughing. I do. So we don't have any more incense except in Amara Siri's room. And there it smells like a temple in India. He loves incense. Whenever I go in his room, he says, oh, I'm sorry. He's great. But these little things done collectively or individually over time give you a sense of I think the bhakti part of Indian religion and Buddhism did come from India, and that whole devotional part which comes so easily to them. Guru Puja they do. It was just recently Guru Purnama, what do they call it, where they revere their teacher, wash his feet, put garlands on the teacher, and these kinds of things. Don't wash my feet, by the way. I'm not suggesting. Back. But, most of us have been to India, and that bhakti part is, as I think I was saying a few evenings ago, that Sri Ramana always went to bhakti. He had a huge shrine to his mother, Ramakrishna, and I think Ramakrishna's deification of truth was the mother, and he had bad cancer at the end of his life, and incredible pain. I guess they didn't have morphine and stuff around. And he would just, he was kind of crying out in pain, and he said to the mother, just you, not me, just you, not me, just you, not me. So he had that sense of maternal caring in the universe, because that was his cultural background, and that's huge in India. Bhakti, the way that the teacher is revered is stunning. It's just stunning. We don't have that so strongly in our culture. We respect our teachers, but I think the bhakti part isn't so strong in our culture. But it can be encouraged in a way which isn't. Again, like if something is so far from our culture, it's hard to connect to it. But I think just rituals, flower, like, I always talk the story of I have a shrine to my mother, and Amar Siri got me a typical Indian lamp for it with with one of those oils they use in India, and I'm always playing with the flame, and of course I'm starting to talk to my mother now. Yeah, I do. I said, "Hey, Mom, what's up today?" or say, can I have a little bit more love, please? That sounds like I'm losing it, maybe. And many monks think so. But, what does that do to your heart? When you play that game of love and care and respect, and you do it to a picture. But it's more than a picture. It was a person that was profound in your life and that cared for you, and maybe he's caring for you. Who knows? Who knows how it is? And so, not to be shy. Well, maybe you don't have to show everyone in your family because they might take you away. But seriously, that emotive part of our lives through imagery, through remembrance, like in Asian culture, people, especially the Sri Lankan communities, will always make a dana in memory of a father or a mother every year. They'll come to the monastery and they'll make a huge dana for the whole monastery, and then they'll write out who the dedication of the offerings is. I'm remembering my mom who died 3 years ago, my dad who died 4 years ago, and also my cousins. And so there's this, and then they'll cook food. Like, I know Nirmali in New Zealand, her husband died very suddenly when he was pretty young. She would always make these fritters of dal, those deep fried things. And he loved them, and so we loved them too. Imagine you're cooking a meal, remembering someone you loved who died very, very suddenly, and you're just generating this sense of respect, veneration, love, and that is, we really need that, because a lot of life is harsh and sharp and cynical, and we have to do that in our private spaces. How each one of us does that is kind of individual. So the capacity to either like abide in silence or also to abide in the heart is a place of resting. And it's not like an attainment, it's a remembering. And as you learn to rest in the heart, and then it's refreshed, and then, okay, now I need to peel the potatoes or whatever you have to do, and do that. So I think that should be enough for today. Cover that. Finish with the verses of